Ladies and gentlemen, this man has no MMA experience at all, but he is a live television broadcast professional.
Eric Crouch tonight wins the Heisman Trophy.
He stands 6'4", weighed in 260 pounds, with a Millard South High School basketball record of 41 wins, only 4 defeats. That includes hitting the game-winning shot in the 1989 Class A state championship game.
It was Matt Kelly with the winning basket for Millard South.
Broadcasting out of Sticky Paw Studios from Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of Omaha, Nebraska. Here is the Vanilla Gorilla, Matt Kelly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome inside the Sticky Paw Studios in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada for another episode of Both Sides of the Camera. I'm your host, Matt Kelly, here with UFC lightweight Drew Dober. Drew?
What up?
It's been a while, right? I mean, we're coming full circle from our days back in Omaha, Nebraska, which we'll get to, and now you're in Vegas. You got a fight coming up this weekend, but welcome to Vegas and welcome to Sticky Paws, man.
I mean, it's a pleasure being here. We've known each other, 15 years now,
15
maybe
or 20,
longer.
yeah.
And man, it's beautiful to see full circle. We both kind of are achieving the things that we looked out to do.
Exactly.
And from Omaha, Nebraska, we're doing it.
Right. You are from Omaha, Nebraska, born and raised, but you're training now and living out of Denver, Colorado.
Right.
You work out at about 4 or 5 different gyms there. By the way, congratulations, newly married and new daddy.
Right. I mean, it didn't happen as soon as you said it, right? There was a little time in between, but yeah, I met a beautiful wife later in my career, and we have a 4-month-old daughter now named Sonia, and man, it's been such a pleasure. And
they're coming out this weekend to watch you fight, right?
Yeah, they come in Saturday because, we don't want the infant too long in Vegas.
Right.
So yeah, just coming out for the 24-hour to watch me fight, and it's going to be a special experience.
Right. Drew, how many fights have you had in the UFC now?
In the UFC, man, I think we're at 21 or 22 right now.
Wow.
I've been with the company for 10 years.
Could you have ever imagined back in our victory days, right? I mean, you were a world champion Muay Thai kickboxer, right? And you were undefeated, right, back in your kickboxing career?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What'd you go record-wise in that?
I think we were up there like 20, 25 or something like that. Yeah.
But still, undefeated as a world champion Muay Thai kickboxer. What got your interest into moving into the mixed martial arts side of things? I mean, you were obviously a combat sports person, but why move into the mixed martial arts world?
Because I couldn't find Muay Thai fights. Okay. Being in Nebraska, I mean, there's some fun Muay Thai fights out there, but we're not in Thailand, we're not in like Canada, we're not in like a strong Muay Thai area culture. And so I was just having such a hard time finding Muay Thai fights, but there was a local bar putting on MMA fights. You just show up, weigh in, you can get right in there. And so to keep myself busy, I would do MMA fights at the bar.
And at what age did that start?
17 years old.
Now, was that legal back then? Were you legally?
I mean, they didn't check my ID.
Right.
So I was trying to fight grown men at 17 years old.
I was going to say, you're a 17-year-old fighting grown-ass men, right? That's what brought you there. What made you stay, and what was it like your first couple fights? And were you like, I'm in love with this, or were you like, holy shit, what am I doing? How did that go?
I mean, I was absolutely in love with it. I love the training, the effort. I lived a Rocky movie, right? We're in local bars, and so, but the entire fight, I absolutely loved. Yeah. Now the transition to MMA was when a wrestler kind of put his hands on me and gave me some problems. We survived, but I went, I got to start learning how to do that. So we started piecing things together so that way I can focus more on MMA and less on Muay Thai. And luckily I did, because then the sport ballooned up.
Going back to that, you and I came into contact when I was working for Victory Fighting Championship. That's where I started calling some of your fights and being around you. We were just talking, Drew had 15 fights in Victory, and you'd come over to my basement and we'd shoot interviews and pre-fight stuff.
UFC 40 completely sold out. I want to entertain the audience with either a fantastic finish or a 15-minute war. Any way I can do this, I'm excited for.
From those days, here now you're 21st, 22nd fight in the UFC. Could you have ever imagined back then that you would be where you're at right now in terms of career, and this is how you're making a living by punching people in the face and letting them punch that pretty face.
Right. Well, I mean, so like the latter of it, like the making the living part, I guess I really didn't imagine, but being a world champion and being at the top, like I was a very enthusiastic teenager. And so when I got into the sport, or at least tried to, like, I had such amount of passion that I just told myself, I'm going to be world champion. I'm going to be world champion. I'm going to do this. Right. And so like, I was more so disappointed that it took so long to get into the UFC.
Right.
But to be here right now, making a living for my daughter, and then now coming up on possibly the most knockouts in the lightweight division, it's very surreal. And it's like, I just want to enjoy all of this because, as you know, it took us 15 years to get here.
Right. Let's go back to the beginning of that, though. When you're a sophomore, junior in high school, you're at Millard North High School. I'm a Millard South Indian back in the day. You're a Millard North Mustang. But you had somebody at that school, I'm sure, became a huge motivation for you. We're going to leave his name out of it, but he's the head football coach at Millard North. What happened? What transpired in that situation? And was that even more of a motivation for you to be like, I'm going to fucking do this, right? Like, this is happening.
Right. I graduated in 2007. So in that time, there wasn't the big UFC fights, right? It was more like a pride, and it was kind of like under the radar. So my junior year in high school, I joined weight training. I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to learn what athletes do. And I went up to the head football coach that was instructing at the time. And I was like, hey, is there any like workouts? This is the sport that I do. Like, could I? And he's like, you can just follow the curriculum like everyone else. And so then a couple weeks later, during roll call, we're all lined up. And he's like, Drew, do you still do that Ultimate Fighting stuff? And at the time, like, I didn't want people to know. Like, it was frowned upon. It had negative like tones,
negative
to it.
Connotations. Right?
Yeah, because we weren't where we're at now, where the UFC was is a sport now.
Right.
People are like, I do it in bars. So I didn't tell people. And so he's like, so do you do it or not? And I was like, well, kind of. And he kept pushing. So finally I was like, I think you need to drop it. Just drop it. And he's like, excuse me? And he goes, you can leave my class. I'm like, absolutely. So I leave his class, and then I go to the counsel's office. And I come back the next day, and as soon as I walk into that gymnasium, he's like, what are you doing here? I said, you should leave my class. And I said, I did. He goes, no, permanently. And I said, this is a public school. I can take whatever class I want. Right. He goes, well, if you keep going, I'm going to fail you. And I'm like, well, at least I get a workout in. And then that's when he walks up to me and he's like, I don't like your attitude. And I went, I don't like how you think you're better than me right now. Yeah. And yeah, it was a huge confrontation. And luckily nothing really came up of it other than then the football players started paying attention. So they were trying to like get me to admit that I was trying to be a fighter. They wanted me to fight one of their guys or something. It was just a disaster. And the entire time I was like, just let me go through school so I can actually do this with a referee and like sanctioning body and like a real sport.
That's amazing. Like, I mean, and was that motivation for you though? I mean, did that give you some motivation? Not. It sounds like you didn't necessarily need that, but did that add anything?
I mean, it added. I mean, I think I was, like I said, a very enthusiastic teenager, so it was motivation. But like the cherry on the cake in this story is like fast forward a couple years later, and I finish a fight where I win by knockout, and I leave that cage. And as I leave that cage, head coach was sitting in front row.
No shit.
Right? Yeah. So For real.
Was he was cheering you on?
I don't know. I didn't get to see.
Maybe he was there for the other guy.
We locked eyes, and that's all he got from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a full circle moment right there, right?
Exactly, right?
Hey, coach, see all these people in here? They just watched me knock this motherfucker out, and they're cheering for me as I'm walking out. Wow, that's an awesome story. How did you decide, and guys have in Omaha have done it, Ryan Jensen would go down and train at Jackson Wink. Jake Ellenberger made the decision to move out to California. I know Houston and some other guys, Alexander, have stayed in Omaha, but what made you decide, and at what point did you go, hey, I'm a pretty good fighter, but I need something more, and why the move out to Denver, and just how has that whole thing gone for you?
I mean, I love the fact that I'm from Omaha. We produce so many fighters and talented fighters,
right?
Like Terrence Crawford, and then all these
pound
UFC
for pound
fighters.
The best right now, yeah.
I know, they're incredible. So
but it's been a good run of UFC guys with Ryan Jensen, Jason Brills, Houston Alexander,
so many,
Jake and Joe Ellenberger, yourself. the number 7 light heavyweight right now, Anthony Smith. I mean, you could go down the line.
So many. So
Grant Dawson that's going to headline the card.
We're all from Omaha. Like Omaha's producing some monsters. So I drank the water. I had the abilities, but Nebraska just there's that ceiling of how good you can get, right? And then really just comes down to like the training partners and like the advanced training that you need to stay in the UFC. So I got to the UFC training at Mid-American Martial Arts with Aaron Cerrone in Omaha, Nebraska. But then he got to a point where like these monsters are out like global, like they're getting the best training in the world. And so I had to do the same. And so
what drew you to Denver then?
So I bounced around. I went to New York, California. You know, I was training at different spots, kind of just feeling it out. And then when I went to Colorado, it was the camaraderie. It wasn't just 4 walls and like, you know, it's us versus them. It was like a community of like athletes trying to be the best selves and
helping everybody else be their best selves, right?
Yeah, I actually fought 2 guys on the team that I went and trained at. Wow. And I was drilling with the dude that I beat. His coach was helping me perform better. And like just that alone, I was like, so it's not like a gang kill or be killed type of thing, right. But we all wanted to get better together. And that camaraderie, I was like, you can't find that anywhere else.
And don't you find that is unique to the MMA world though? Because, you know, I'm sure there are some gyms that, hey, it's us against them. If you're not with us, you're against us, all that. But I have seen over my years of following Jake and Joe around and seeing different people, I mean, people go to different gyms and how common is it after you beat somebody or lose to somebody in the cage, you're like, hey man, we need to train together.
Right.
I mean, you hear that happen regularly. So what's that camaraderie like? And just, it's unique to this sport because it doesn't happen anywhere else.
Right. I actually had the conversation on the airplane coming on here because I was talking to a complete stranger about fighting. And then I was like, we're callous to it. And it's not even just calloused to fighting. Fighting to us is like playtime with our friends. Right? I'm just trying to roughhouse my friends on recess, right? And that's what fighting is to me and to a lot of people. And so when an outsider looks in and goes like, oh my God, you're fighting each other. Like, no, there's no anger involved. I'm trying to score more points than my buddy. The best way I describe it is like when you like talk shit to your friend, right? Is it insultive? No, you're just having fun, right? So things with fighting, right? I'm not trying to like ruin this person's life. We're just competing, having fun, and that's where I think the camaraderie in MMA lies. It's we're buddies before, we try to beat each other up during, and we're buddies afterwards, and it doesn't need to be so emotional.
That comes to my next question. Drew, I've known you for a long time. I've seen you get knocked out. I mean, Hernandez from Iowa knocked you out, hot-handed Hernandez. I was shocked at that. I was like, oh my God, I thought Drew Dober was unbeatable, you know? But I've seen you lose fights. I've seen you win fights. Never one time in all the time I've known you have I ever seen you get pissed off. So is there anything that makes, like, even after you lose, hey, I got knocked out, what's next? Let's go. Like, with a smile on your fucking face. Like, I watch you and I'm like, my question to you that I wanted to ask you here, has anything ever pissed you off or bothered you? Like what does that? Because I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got a lot of things that piss me off.
What are those?
But
how about in the fight world? Why?
I mean, I'm married with a daughter right now, so like at home, I'll probably get more upset than in the gym. But but as an MMA fighter, we get it out. Like I get to go to work and punch my coworkers. So it's like and I chose the life of recess. Like I get to go and do this, and so it's like, why do I have a frown on my face when I'm like living this life of just being able to like live, train, eat, sleep, like.
But even no animosity really towards your like opponents and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a choice?
It's a choice, but more so, I guess I just don't feel it, right? Like I don't have animosity to another human. Like we are trying to punch each other and score more points and play this game, Yeah. And it doesn't need to be emotional, right? Yeah. I mean, there are some fighters that I dislike, but in when we're in the cage, it doesn't need to be emotional. And plus, being emotional does not translate well to being productive.
What's been your favorite fight that you ever had? Is it in the UFC or is it before the UFC? What's your favorite fight?
That's such a big question.
Do you have a couple?
I mean, there's so many. Like each one of these fights are like my little Rocky stories. So it's like which fight movie is your favorite? But if I think if I got to choose one right now, is the fight that got me into the UFC, right? And like we got to a point.
And that was against
Tony Sims.
Okay.
Tony Sims. Yeah, I beat a veteran of TJ O'Brien. I submitted him, and he was a black belt, and I was like, this is it. That's my call. Like I beat a vet. Didn't get the call.
Was this in Victory?
It was in Victory.
Okay.
Yep. So then I had to like ask people like, how do I get the recognition? How do I get signed? Like, what do I need to do? And so then Colorado promoter offered me the undefeated 155 champion that holds like the knockout record. Like the guy's a monster, and the UFC had their eyes on him.
And this was a different promotion?
Yep, it was a PFL, I believe, in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And so then I pretty much just raised my hand. I was like, all right, if I don't get the attention, I'm going to steal it from that guy.
Yeah.
And
so you knew they were watching him, and you're like, if I beat this guy, if they're looking to take this guy, and I beat this guy, then I should go.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what happened.
And I mean, yeah. So it was he had a knockout record for a reason. The dude knocked me down three times in the first round. I mean, just. He hit hard, probably the hardest I've ever been hit in my entire career. And man, we had to sit on that stool going into the second round and go, all right, what do I got to do to get in the UFC? And so I got off that stool with the determination I deserve it more than he does. And so I went out there, I won the second round, and then the third round was back and forth, and then I nearly submitted him at the end, which sealed me the split decision win over the champion. And then 2 weeks later, I got the call.
What was that like? Talk about getting your lifelong dream and your goal is to be a combat sports fighter, get into the UFC, and you finally get the call. What is that like? It
was like getting ready to hop on that roller coaster. It's the mixture of anxiety and excitement. Like excitement, like I finally made it.
And now, oh shit.
But the anxiety of they wanted me to fight in a week's notice, up a weight class, and I was sitting in a diner. Like just stuffing my face. And I went, what weight class is it? Like up a weight class. I was like, all right, I can make that weight in a week. All right, let's just do it. And so it was just that mixture of like, this is not how I saw my first fight in the UFC going, but you just got to take opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at Jake Ellenberger, his first fight in the UFC was, I think, a quick call against Carlos Condit. He almost got Carlos finished, but, lost that fight. But yeah, I can imagine, like, that's the thing where, hey, I get the call, I got to go no matter what, right?
Right.
You weren't turning that down.
Not at all. And the beautiful thing about fighting has always taught me it's you don't plan ahead. You just make do to what is given to you. And I think this idea can expand into like more things more than just fighting. But I mean, you stay the course, you work hard, and things run in your way all the time, and you might not get noticed. It can not be picture perfect.
Right.
But being a fighter, I know that I can. Rise and overcome obstacles.
How do you stay ready? Like I'm sure after some fights you're like, hey man, do you ever get done with a fight and go, I'm not kidding, I need a break? or you always like, I need a break, but I got to stay ready? Like how does that happen?
You try to schedule your own like off season, right? Staying ready, I think would be listening to your body. I think that would be because when you're in camp and you're training for another fight, I listen to my coaches. They tell me what to do, when to do it, jump how high, and you just do it, right? But any other time outside of camp, then I listen. Like obviously I have such a fun time training, but like I wake up, like eat intelligently, train intelligently. You don't have to go so hard, but you're not sitting on the couch doing nothing.
Right.
And so it's like this weird give and take, of how much today, how less tomorrow, and all that stuff. And then you get a call, and then your fight's 6 weeks out, and then you no longer listen to your body. You just listen to your coaches.
How active are you in seeking out fights? I mean, do you let it be known what you're looking for, or do you leave that up to your coaches and your camp as well?
I mean, that's been big this year. So I got into the rankings, and I wanted like bigger and better, main event, bigger rankings and all that stuff. So I started in my version, talking trash, but trying to get fights with these top guys, and none of them were.
You called out Patty, right?
Yeah, Patty, and I call out all these like
right.
all these dudes, Michael Chandler, all that stuff.
Right.
But like nothing was coming to surface,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to wait around for opportunity. I'm trying to be as busy as possible.
Right.
So I usually just tell the UFC what month I can be ready,
Okay.
and just find me somebody with 2 arms, 2 legs, and let's do this.
I'm looking for something that I screenshotted from you the other day. You posted something, and I wish I could have it. I don't have it on me right now. It was, oh yeah, here it is. In between training, because I am highly masculine, I am getting choked up at a Barnes & Noble's reading a romance novel listening to R&B. And I had to look at that a couple times, and I'm like, what? Did Drew just post that? And in between training, because I'm highly masculine, I'm getting choked up at a Barnes & Noble's reading a romance novel listening to R&B. This is like 7 days before you're going to step in the octagon and lock a door and punch somebody in the face. You have fun with that kind of shit, huh?
I mean, I just think it's funny. Everyone likes this bravado, like this macho, I fight, beat your chest and stuff like that. And I just think it's ridiculous, you know? Yeah. It's like... So actually, someone else sent that to me, or they posted it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Did you just make this?" Because it sounds very accurate.
Right.
And then I looked at it in detail.
It sounds accurate for you?
Yeah. And I looked at it in detail, and I was like, "Oh, I posted that like a couple years ago." That's so funny. Like, I actually said those words in it. Awesome. I don't know. So I was like,
"Oh, so somebody."
So they made it like a meme.
You did say those?
Yeah, I did, in fact, and that was actually a situation in my life in which I did get choked up at a Barnes and Nobles. Because I do love reading romance novels.
That's good. I know you're a fun guy. I know you love to dance. I know you love to dress well. You do some modeling and shit. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, what kind of aspirations? And I'm asking this because, I mean, you look like a fucking movie star to me, bro. I mean, you're built like one. You could play you could play Superman, whatever. But what kind of aspirations do you have after you get done, punchy?
I mean, I'd love broadcasting. I'd love to talk shop.
And you call some fights out in Colorado, right?
Yep,
Or an organization.
I'm getting my feet wet with it because, I mean, as you know, there's a skill involved, right? It's not just talking. You got to be able to play the part.
Well, and there's a difference. I mean, as when I used to call fights, I would call the action, but then whoever was sitting next to me, I think Jake sat next to me a couple of times, Cerrone sit next to me. I had... Joe the Nose, Wilkes sit next to me a couple times. Ed Herman sat next to me for a night. So yeah, you're only as good as your analyst, right? Like, right. I mean, you can be a great play-by-play guy, but if you don't facilitate that and get it to your guys that really know what the fuck they're talking about, then it's but that's what you're wanting to do.
Yeah, I'm interested in it. I mean, I was like an extra in a film last year, so I learned kind of like what that would look like outside of fighting.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that?
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, though.
Yeah.
And so that's
a lot of hurrying up and waiting to do something quickly, right? And then
I mean, you can look like a Ken doll and have a square jaw, but then it doesn't just get you into that business. Right. Broadcasting, films, and all that stuff. Like, it takes a lot of work.
Any desire for that though?
I would love it. Yeah,
you would love to act.
I mean, I definitely want to stay in front of a camera somehow, and so we're trying to figure that part out.
But how does the modeling come about? I mean, I see you model certain. I think you probably have some of those pants on right now. What are they called?
Jaywalkers.
Yeah.
My little stretchy kung fu pants.
So you got Drew with these poses, and he's kicking and all that, and not that the average person that wears those is going to be doing that, but you make it look good. So
I appreciate it. I'm glad other people enjoy it because I'm not really taking a ton of profit from it.
Right.
But usually I just get approached to like, hey, I want to take a picture of you in these pants or whatever, and so I'm like, I just take opportunity. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll do it. And so hopefully it turns into something. Right. But as of now, it's on a very amateur level.
What do you enjoy the most about what you do? Like what you get to do, what you get to wake up every day? Like what's the biggest joy for you in just your life?
It's the passion. Yeah. I get to live out my passion. And I think, other people, they have to like curb away from what makes them feel good to achieve like a financial freedom and stuff like that, where I get to do the thing that I absolutely love. And I've loved it since I was 13 years old. I still love it at 34 years old. And I have financial freedom. I have like direction. You and I are sitting here talking about this stuff. Right. And like, I get to live out my passion freely every day of my life.
That's awesome, man. What's been, have you had anything in your life that's been super tough for you to deal with? And,
so many things.
Yeah.
The fight related or just overall?
I mean, I guess, like I said, I've never seen you in a bad mood. So like, what are things like that and how do you deal with things when they get to that? Like, cause I've never seen you in that capacity, I guess.
So I think a very significant moment in my life where getting into the UFC took longer than expected. And then I got into the UFC and I lost my first 2 fights and I moved out to Colorado. got married, which was
I was going to ask you about the first one,
marriage,
right?
which was a fun story, but an unfortunate marriage.
So you wound up marrying the sister of a guy that you fought, correct? And you met her after the fight?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you mind telling that story?
No, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's who I remember initially, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought Drew was married, and then Drew's not married, but it's an interesting story.
Right, interesting, and then I'm going to answer the question as we follow through.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I flew out to Berlin, Germany, and fought the local hero, and we fought to a decision.
Okay.
I thought I won the decision, but whatever. Get a little hometown sometimes.
Yeah. And
when in Germany, I was just talking to him after the fight. I'm like, well, what are you doing afterwards? He was like, oh, I'm going to this bar and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I'll meet you there. And
so
I
the guy you just fought, and
we're to share drinks.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So at the bar, we share a drink. I meet his dad. I meet his sister, and sister and I hit it off. We exchanged numbers. I go back home. We're still talking. And then we just decided to hey, let's go on a date somewhere and let's make this work.
Wow.
So, but I feel like things were escalated because she is from Germany. So there's the visa issue and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we got married. We did the thing. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
So, and so then the moment in my life where I think is the hardest is divorce. I lost my fight. I'm not.
That all happened in a kind of a short period of time.
In a short period, like a year and stuff like that.
And then what? You start to question yourself, or I need to make changes, or both.
You question yourself. You make changes. I mean, when you can see the finish line, the end is near. What if the UFC cuts me? I wanted to be married and have family, and now I'm 26 years old or so, and I don't have that. You kind of start second guessing your actions towards your goals.
Did you make some changes?
So what I did is I hired a mental therapist, and what we talked about was when you and I met when I was 18 years old, I was just having fun. I was sitting in the audience at Victory watching the fights right before I was getting my hands taped.
Yeah.
When I went to the fights, I was literally just having fun. Did I want to win? Did I want to lose? I didn't really care at that time.
You were just loving what you were doing.
I was just loving. I didn't think about the money. I didn't think about the fame. I didn't think about the women. I didn't think about all that stuff. I literally was just fighting for myself, and it was a lot of fun.
So you had to get back to that.
We brought that back. We started having fun again. I don't care how much money I make. I don't care about the women or the status or the, all that stuff. The glitz and glam, I stopped caring. When I stopped caring and I just started having fun again, now we're breaking knockout records. And you're in a fun camp, right? I mean, you're with Gaethje and you're with Trevor, and I mean, just talk about the guys that you get to interact with and go after every day. I mean, you guys are making each other better all the time, and you're in a room full of fucking killers, dog. It's just a meat grinder, right? I mean, who's in your gym? We're saying here we got Neil Magny, Justin Gaethje, Usman comes in. One of the best friends is Neil, right? Yeah. So, Neil comes in. So Neil. Corey Sandhagen. Gaethje, you said? Gaethje. And then we have guys popping in and out. Are Rose and Pat there too? Or they Rose kind of does her own thing. She's with Trevor Whitman. Gotcha. And so, but Trevor's with Gaethje though, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, but the beautiful thing about our team is we're not we all are able to grab from Colorado the way we want. So Trevor takes care of the Justin, the Usman, the Rose, and then we have guys at high altitude, which is the Corey Sandhagen, the Neil Magny, and those guys. And then we have Genesis, Pound for Pound, all these different gyms that are bringing up these guys. So man, it's just a meat grinder. And plus we're at Elevation. There's the Olympic Training Center down in Colorado Springs. I mean, you just breed intense athletes. And so training at Team Elevation with those guys, not only am I getting beat up Monday through Friday, but I'm actually learning what they're doing that's making them successful. So I'm able to watch Gaethje with Trevor, Corey with his coaches, Neil with his coaches, and their communication, their skills, their drills. What are they doing differently that I'm not doing, right? And we all bounce it off each other, which is such a beautiful thing to grow skill, martial arts, camaraderie, all that stuff, on top of giving each other black eyes. What is when will you know it's time to stop for you? I asked Jake Ellenberger when he knew it was time. I asked Anthony, Anthony's he's still going, obviously. Yep. And he's doing the TV thing too, right? I mean, he's doing great on the desk and all that kind of stuff. But at what point do you just mentioned you're 34 years old, but when do you see you wanting to wind down, or what do you think will be that time for you, and when do you think you'll know, and how do you think you'll know? Right. As soon as that passion that motivates me starts dwindling, and I start losing that passion to step in the cage, and not the passion for the glory, but losing the passion for the work.
Right.
You know, then
that's 95% that, right?
Exactly.
You only get 5% of stepping in that.
I gotta eat like grilled chicken. I gotta wake up at 6 a.m. I gotta do all this stuff, and as soon as I start losing that passion, and like it could happen. You know, in a fight, it could happen because of an injury. It could happen because I found broadcasting is a better thing for me. You know, there's definitely different ways that would signal. Right. But as soon as I start losing that passion for stepping in the cage, then we're going to move on to something else.
Well, I mean, sitting next to you, listening to you talk, knowing what, you know, you've been doing, I think that's going to be a while before that happens, my friend. I
know. I mean, as you know, 18 years old, I'm aging fairly well. I feel like I feel so much better at 34 than I did at 24. Well, I mean, so yeah. we will see how long we could pull this, but I have a strong feeling we could possibly do it in the 40.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? We'll have you back on more times when you're out here, or even calling in from Colorado and stuff. But yeah, dude, it's been a pleasure. Love you, brother, and it's been appreciate you sitting down with me. And it's been a lot for, you know, my situation, and just I finally was, you know, just laying in that hospital bed in July and realizing that I had cancer, and just saying, what the fuck am I waiting for, you know? This is what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to sit down with you guys and Jake and Anthony, and, you know, got to sit down with Jack Eichel from the Golden Knights earlier and broadcast team from them. But dude, you just got to do things when you're, you know, you just got to do them. And for you to, you know, I didn't know what it was going to be like when I reached out to you to, you know, to ask you to come on the show. I knew it was fight week for you, and you were like, you fucking answered your phone right away, and you're like, fuck yeah, I want to come on. So just means a lot, man. So to have you sitting here is fucking awesome.
Well, you've done a lot for me in my career, and I paid attention to it. So the moment I saw your name in the text, I'm like, man, why didn't we do this sooner?
And Anthony was the same way, man. I was like, I know you guys are all busy fucking guys, and I reached out to you, and you all like just responded right away and picked up, and that's just that's humbling stuff. So thank you.
Of course, it's such an honor.
I appreciate you, and best of luck. And this won't be the last time you're on, so.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I told people, I made it through my last episode without crying, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it through anymore, so I'm a little bitch sometimes. But anyway.
Well, I mean, we read that meme that I was posted of me, right? So I've been there.
Well, but they didn't have video of you crying at Barnes & Noble, but
it's going to happen.
Drew Dober, man, thank you so much, man.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
You, and that's going to do it for this episode of Both Sides of the Camera. We'll see you next time, and I'll try not to cry. No problem. We'd like to thank the following for sponsoring this week's episode. Established in 1992, Lights On Nebraska is one of the longest tenured grip, lighting, and camera rental houses in the Midwest. Lights On Nebraska has you covered. And here's a closer look at our other sponsor, NitroTickets.com. There are literally thousands of fighters in combat sports. However, only a fraction make a considerable income from their fights.
It's just really stressful, it's really time consuming, and a lot of times some guys end up not making what they possibly could have made, and in turn their fans don't get to see them fight because it is such a hassle these days, especially the way that the world is.
Many athletes simultaneously work full-time jobs while training for an upcoming bout, and many more rely on sponsorship or outside income sources just to be able to afford the growing cost of training. The majority of promotions in America rely on fighters to develop a fan base that will buy tickets to come and watch them compete. Tickets are generally sold on a cash-only basis, and many fighters are not able to accurately show their fan base until the night of the fight, and even then, it can only be measured by which fighter's fans cheer the loudest. Fighters that draw the best are generally welcomed onto future cards based on their ability to sell tickets. In addition, most promotions don't have the ability to accept anything other than a cash payment from the fans who are spending their hard-earned money on the tickets. That can be a hassle as well. Enter NitroTickets.com. Nitro Tickets is the first group sales service in the world to focus specifically on combat sports and the dedicated athletes that put it all on the line. Nitro Tickets allows consumers to target a specific athlete and a specific promotion and track those sales so that the athlete is financially rewarded with a percentage of their ticket sales. This allows fans to put money directly into the pocket of the fighter that they've come to see and support.
I would encourage fighters, fans, sponsors, supporters, to use Nitro tickets, because it takes all the stress, it takes all the heartache away. You just go to the website and you got your tickets right there, and then you don't have to worry about inconveniencing someone who's preparing to walk in there and go to battle.
And one of the big stresses too for fighters is worrying about tickets leading up to the fight. So I think with Nitro tickets too, for your friends and family, you can throw it up on social media and just let Nitro handle the rest.
Nitro Tickets works in conjunction with any ticketing service or as a standalone, offering digital and printed tickets as well. Couple this with the ease of purchasing tickets at home and the security of trusted online processing, and it all adds up to a victory both inside and outside of the arena. NitroTickets.com, built for battle.